All right, welcome back to My Classic Fords. Still seems kind of weird saying that, looking at a 2009 Focus, but that's what we're doing right now. What I'm up to tonight, if you watch the other couple videos, you'll know I cut the sill off this car, I put a new one on. The back part of it here needs to be fixed, so I'd like to try and get that tonight, if we can. And as you see here, it's got kind of an angle to it. It's kind of rounded even. So we're gonna have to piece that in. The sill that we had bent, it's just a straight piece. So you're not gonna be able to curl it. It's 18 gauge. It's pretty rigid, especially with all those bend lines in it. So we're gonna have to put it on in pieces. I'm gonna show you how I do that. Okay, so first things first, like I said, this has got kind of a curve to it. When we look at this piece here, you're not gonna be able to bend this. So we're gonna have to put this piece in. The sill are shaped a little bit different back here. We may have to adjust this a little bit, but we'll get to that. First thing I think we're gonna do is we're gonna make a patch about this wide. So I'm gonna cut that out. We're gonna go about this wide. And we'll just kind of run our finger down the edge. Like that. I would say, if we can put another piece in there. Something like that. I was looking at, if I put a piece here, that's going to be about there. I'm just looking at maybe running another piece right here. Okay, so we'll cut these two. Okay, so now those pieces are cut. Like I said, this is shaped a little bit different, so we're going to have to modify our sill a little bit. I think we'll just flatten this out some. Take a little bit of the bend out of it. Just a little more. Something like that. All right, we'll try tacking that on. Okay, so this is kind of rusty here. You know, we'll look at that in a minute. We may have to cut a piece out of here and put a little piece in. For now, I'm interested in getting this on here. That's kind of all I'm interested in doing. We'll start with this, and then if we had to build from this new piece up there, we will. There might not be anything here to weld to. Okay, like I said, that's pretty thin there. We may have to recut this and put a little piece in, but just need somewhere to start. I don't know how good you can see this, but this isn't anywhere close. You see I got it tacked. Got it tacked up top there. But down here at the bottom, it's definitely not right. And up here, like I said, we may have to recut this and put a piece in. I mean, we're gonna have to do something here. Obviously, there's a hole. So all you gotta do is once you get it kind of tacked, I mean, this is pretty easy to manipulate. We can bend it. We may have to take a hammer and just tap this a little bit to get it to fit. Okay, so we got that tacked on. And we're looking at the next piece here. We're going to put it like this. And I'll bring the camera over so you can see. But this is overlapping right now, which is okay, because we're going to trim that and we're going to make that fit. So you see I got that on. I got it tacked in there as best I can. I'm just going to try and hold this up. So we're going to put that in there like that. You see how it's well overlapped. So we need to trim that to make it fit. But that is essentially going to give us our shape. So I'll go ahead and trim that now and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so the same kind of thing here. Now that we got this lined up pretty good, I mean, we got a little bit of a gap up top there. May be able to just trim this up top to make it fit a little bit better, but which I'll do maybe in a minute. But I just want to show you the cut is good now, but it doesn't fit. So we're going to do the same thing. We'll tack along the top and along the midsection, and then we'll just bend it up underneath to make it fit. Okay, so what I'm looking at right here, this is going to fit pretty good. And this is going to have to bend up here. Looks like we're going to have a little bit more trimmed off, just in order to make that bend in there. And this is all, you know, this is skilled guesswork, I guess we'll call it. I mean, I'm just kind of guessing at it, but at the same time, I have a relative idea of what I'm doing anyway. And if this is your first time, it's fun to try. I like it. I think that's going to fit much nicer. So I've got a little bit of a gap there, but not terrible. And I think I'll leave that. I'll just sand that a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead. Looks like this doesn't quite fit. We'll just take our hands, just bend it a little bit, just so it's a little smoother. Looks about right. Too bad. that a couple tacks. Now, I'm just going to pump this a little bit. I want to make that seam as flush as I can. I'm not getting very good ground, I would say. Again, I'm going to fold this up underneath. Needs a little trim. Working it as, down as I can, little spots at a time. Pretty flush. The swap there don't seem to want to cooperate. Give that a little trim. Gap there, just trying to fill that in some. So there's our next piece. Now, we may have to do this in two pieces. That's kind of what it looks like. Looks like there's still a little bit of a kind of intermediate here. This is flat, this is sloped, this is flat. Looks like we might have to do something right there. Just have a look, see what we got. So really this sill, we'll know that for the other side, could actually come this way a little bit more. It's actually, yesterday I put a mark here, just guessing on kind of where it stopped. It was 58 inches, I remember. So it actually looks like, now that we have the sill on, it actually looks like I could bring it back probably about 1.5 inches further. So that'll be 59.5 for the other side. So we'll start out with 59.5, and that'll give us one less patch on the other side. Because now I'll have to splice another piece in. Here's what it is. Splice this piece in. That'll get us that much closer. And then I'll have to put an intermediate piece in here to try and make that transition. We'll go ahead and cut this now. This just needs to be cut straight. There. I ride my finger down the edge like this. I go very gentle because it's very sharp. It's just a guide. Doesn't have to be cut perfect. We're going to weld it. Okay, so I got that piece in. And I think I was originally correct. I think 58 inches is the straight section. I've actually got this skewed a little bit, which will make this section even easier. Now, we can do this with a measuring tape, because this section here is actually shaped a little bit like a pie, because these are kind of sucked back and this is kind of tilted. We could kind of make a measurement here. We're 1 3/4, we're 2.5 on the bottom. It's probably about even that it needs to be skewed. So it's 2.5 inches, 1 3/4. So that's 3/4 of an inch in the difference. So that's 3/8 on each side. So we'll go in roughly 3/8. We'll go over the 1.5 inches. We'll do the same thing down here. We'll go the complete 2.5. So now I know this is 2.5 inches wide. I'm trying to make this pie shaped. So it's 1.5 inches up here, 2.5 down here, or 1 3/4 actually. Now that I say it out loud, it's actually 1 3/4, 1 3/4, 2.5. It's 3/4 of an inch smaller on the top. We'll go 3/8, 3/8, and we'll taper that like that. So I went to 2.5 on the bottom. So we can do it with a straight edge. I don't have one laying with me, so I'm just gonna make a rough guess at it. Okay. So I cut this a little bit big just to start with. I know it's roughly what I want. I'll bring the camera over so you can see. So this is what we have on the go. Yeah, this patched on here, pieced on. And we got this patch left. So it's gonna fit right in here. And it's gonna kind of transition these two. So we get like a smoother look. So I'll tack that in now. We may have to trim the edges a little bit just as we go. Like I said, I left it a little big. It's always easier to trim it. All right, I just swept the floor a little bit just to make it a little more comfortable to sit here. I'm not covered in rust and dirt so much. Okay, let's see how this fits. So you want to make sure you got the patch relatively close. You know, you don't want to tack it kind of crossways because then you can't bend it into place. So you almost got to have it ready to go in place, if you know what I mean. Right about there looks pretty reasonable. I'm going to go ahead and tack that. So we got that tacked pretty good. Maybe one more. Maybe another one underneath. Just to make sure. Now, this is lined up good here, so I'm actually just going to put a couple tacks on it. A little bit on the top. sparks that fall on my knee. They are really hot. Okay, so just got this left. Good and flush right there. So yes, this is a lot of stitch welding, you know, little pulse welds all along. The only good thing is all these joints are nice, clean, you know, thick sheet metal. So this welding will go pretty decent. Another nice thing, when you're welding a sill on like this, where there's so many bends in it, you can weld it up pretty quickly without warping. You know, like it's not like you're welding out into the door. Along here, it's not going to warp too much. It's pretty rigid. You still want to kind of jump around. When I weld this, I'll just do little bits here, there, and everywhere. So I'll show you what it looks like. So this is what it's looking like right now. We got it kind of just pieced in. So if you look at it from the top, we got that kind of rolled look. As you see, that's how we ended up just with these pieces here to give us that little bit of a bend. We got it fit in the car reasonably well. I think it looks okay. So I'll weld that seam up now. And I'll weld that little bit of the sill up. Like I said, we'll probably stick a patch up here while we're at it. Just take a minute. All right, well, let's weld that up. Okay, so that's what that looks like after it's welded. So I'm going to grind that off just so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so here's the sill cleaned up. As you see, I didn't grind all the weld off. There's still a little bit of weld there. Reason being is, you know, you want to leave the weld as much as you can. You want to flatten it out, but you can't take it all off. So here's the new sill. So there's what it looks like from the top. Here's what it looks like from down here. You see we got a pretty nice shape to it. It looks, you know, pretty smooth. I mean, we still have that big hole to fix up, but don't look too bad. So that sill is done, with the exception of that hole. So I think I'll patch that now. Just cut out a little square, pop a square in, tack it, blend it off. And then we just got the underneath part to deal with. Okay, I got that little square cut out. I just wanted to show you a little tip, little trick. So I'm trying to hold that in there, and it's, you know, it's more than difficult. So take a little scrap, tack it to your patch, put it in your ground clamp, and then you can just hold it in there, and then you can tack it with the other hand. That way it doesn't go in, fall sideways, fall in there. Yeah, hopefully that's helped you. All right, so this is what the total sill looks like after it's been fixed. Other than, like I said, the bottom, we gotta crawl underneath and do the bottom, but that's that strange little part in the back. Now that it's fixed, the door closed, I'd say it looks pretty respectable. You know, it follows the door reasonably well. or I certainly think it does. We fix that little hole back there. All right, so we did a lot of repair in here. So now we'll have a look at the bottom, see what we can do with that. Okay, so I have this little piece of tube. It's a 1 by 1.5 rectangle tube. I just cut it to length. It's gonna go right up in here along the bottom of the sill. And we're gonna weld it to this and weld it to this. And that's gonna help support the side of the car as well as close this gap in. All right, so I'm gonna stick it up in there and see if I can tack it. Okay, so I just tacked it in there. It's just got a couple tacks and some clamps on it, but essentially that's what we're going for. We're gonna do some welding along here and some welding along here, and that's gonna support that sill really well and hopefully give some strength back to the car. Okay, so that's stitched on. That's all I'm doing under here is just stitching that tube on. So now that that's on there, we'll take a bead of seam sealer and just try to cover up that seam as best as we can. And then we'll probably spray it with rock guard or bed liner just to, you know, help seal it in and make it last a little bit longer. I think out here we'll drill some holes just to get up in there and undercoat it, and then let any water and crud fall out. As you see back there, that's that little piece of sill that jets out. I think it looks pretty good. It matches, you know, pretty reasonable. Okay, so the last thing we got to do to the sill is just put the last piece of tube in back there. Okay, so this is at the back, by the back wheel, and that's where that sill jets out. So we're gonna run a piece of tube from here to here, and then we'll just run a short piece here. This is the original spot to jack up the car, like on a hoist, you know, or with a jack. This is the part of the sill that's supposed to be strong. I actually cut that off because it was kind of rusty. So what we'll do, we're gonna run that tube across and we're gonna weld it right to the rear subframe of the car. So if anyone wants to jack that up by the sill, it'll be stronger than it ever was. Okay, so this sill is completely done. So this is what it looks like. Okay. And if you're wondering why the tube's hanging down in the back, the tube is actually straight. Because we manipulated that sill, it actually shrunk, it went a little high. I'll show you what I mean. When I put that tube in there, I'd used a straight edge and just, I made this a straight line. And just by moving that sill, wrapping it around that corner, made it shorter. So that's why it's a little higher. So it is what it is. Like I said, it's an old car. We're not that worried about it. I think it looks okay. That sill is now strong enough that if somebody put a jack on it, it's welded to the subframe portion of the car. So all along here, that tube runs up to the front, welds to the front part of the subframe. So it's, you know, it's got to be better than it was for sure. So like I said, this is now complete, or is as complete as it's gonna be. So I think what I'll do now, I think I'll run a little bit of seam sealer on the back side. And if you remember from last night, there's a little hole up there. We're gonna run seam sealer in that. And then I was talking to a buddy of mine tonight, and he asked, you know, he said, is it worth your time putting fiberglass on it, body fill over it? And I said, well, yeah, like, you know, it's gonna make it look better. And his reply was, you know, you told me the car, you were just trying to get by the winter with it, and then you thought you might drive it for a few months and and use the powertrain out of it. He said, so, you know, why are you spending all the time on it? So he had a valid point. And you know what? I think he's right. I don't see the need to fiberglass over this. You know, it's just an old car. The car, you know, it's like 6 inches off the ground. I'm thinking if I take the spray-on bed liner, which I have, I can put over top of it. And I think it'll look plenty good enough. I think we can get that on thick enough to hide most of the weld seams. You know, then we could spray a little blue paint on it. You know, the car's not perfect. You know, it's got dings and dents and scratches anyway. I'm not sure making the sill looking, you know, absolutely perfect. I could spend my time with body filler, make it look, you know, A1, but at the end of the day, it's a wore out 09 Focus. So my sill certainly looks a lot better than this one. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm going with it. So I think what I'll do now, I think I'll run a little seam sealer on it, and then we'll grab some bed liner and spray it on. Okay. So I want to get one thing straight right off the bat here. This car needs to get me to and from work while my truck is being repaired. I'm going to do a timing chain in my truck. And this car needs to get me back and forth to work. And after that, if I drive it for a little bit, you know, it'll save me some gas money, kind of help pay for the car. And then I think I may rob the powertrain out of this and put it in my 1950 Ford Consul. So that being said, you know, you have to look at each job individually. You know, I agreed with a buddy of mine who suggested just doing bed liner. And if you look at this, you know, it's plenty good enough. You know, like, yes, you can still see some of the welds there. That's really not going to bother me. Back here, you can see the little patch. You can almost not see the weld there. You can. It's just barely there. Now, to me, this is plenty good enough for the job that I'm going for. You know, when it comes time to do my 62 Mercury wagon, this won't be the job that I'm going for. When I do my wagon, I'm going to go for, you know, perfect. But you have to understand, to put body filler on something like this and spend all the time and effort sanding each and every little nook and cranny like that, you really have to have the desire to do it. And for me, for this car, to me, this is fantastic. I did underneath as well. So that's now what underneath looks like. So hopefully you can see that. So to me, this is an A1 job. Like I said, you can see the welds on the bottom, but you got to remember this car is, you know, very low to the ground, and not a lot of people are going to be looking at it. I probably could just leave it black for all that matters, you know, like, I don't want to close the doors right now just because, you know, obviously it's wet. But you're going to see a little bit of black there. The whole bottom will be black. And the little dog leg would be black. That being said, you know, maybe after that dries, it went on pretty thick. You know, maybe I could take a little sandpaper, scuff it up, put a little blue paint on it. Maybe, you know, if I desire to, I guess. But like I said, you have to understand the life of the car and what you're expecting to get out of it. You know, like, it's got a cracked taillight, it's got body damage. You know, how good do you want to make it? And for me, personally, I only needed to be good for a few months. And after that, I'm thinking about robbing this entire powertrain because it is a low mileage car. And I thought I'd modernize a 1950 Ford Consul. I thought that'd be pretty cool. So I don't know exactly what I'm doing with the car yet. I do know I'm going to drive it while we fix my truck. Other than that, I'll probably drive it for a bit, just like I said, to save some gas money and get a little bit of use out of it. And then after that, it doesn't really matter what happens to it. So that's the reason I went this route. I hope you liked the video. I hope you like what I did to the car. If it was any good to you at all, take what you can from it. If you stick with me, subscribe if you can, or if you want to. Give me some likes, comments, that would be great. I'm going to paint my 62 Mercury wagon. I'm going to call it a light restoration job. So we're going to do some body work, we're going to fix it up, and we're going to do a lot better job than this. Not that there's anything wrong with this particular job, but if you want to see a better job and you want to see some body fill action, stuff like that, stick with me. Give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe if there's anything that you like. All right, guys. Well, thanks very much for watching. And again, hopefully you got something out of this video. All right. Thank you.